out of my hands too a little bit.
Oh, there it is. We
Right
are officially.
just
Okay.
now,
Yes.
11:01. All right, I'm gonna just pull up my side here so we can see questions. Everybody, welcome to episode 5. I can't believe it's been 5 weeks already of Reasonably Well. I have my good friend Jenn Nakhai here from Aon Counseling in Lynn, Massachusetts. Today, we're hoping to talk lightly and importantly about this topic of conversation around trauma response and how that has been kind of shaking things up for us with COVID-19 and how we're all renavigating the year. So welcome, and thank you again to Creative North Shore and Creative Collective for having us. And welcome, Jenn.
Hello, hello. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, I knew that was going to happen. I'm like, ding, ding, here we go. It's all confirmation.
We talked about this. We did talk about it.
We're good. Okay. I don't know how to.
All right. So just to get
first tell everyone a little bit about who you are and Aon Counseling, and I'm sorry about that. That's
okay.
Okay. Yeah, tell everyone a little bit about who you are and your company and how you guys have been navigating some of these initial changes.
So my name is Jennifer Nakhai, and I'm the owner of Aon Counseling and Consulting. We're basically a mental health clinic in Lynn, but we are servicing all of Massachusetts right now and a number of other states because we've been granted emergency permission to treat outside of Massachusetts. And so we're taking advantage of that to have access or create access for people in many other places, not just in Lynn. We usually keep it very local, but now the sky is the limit, and you can have your services of psychotherapy at home.
That's great. Yeah, so telehealth is obviously a huge, it's been growing. I've seen it at a lot of other companies. You can visit anybody nationwide, but I think it's interesting what you're doing with a local, a small business here on the North Shore and navigating that. So
I mean, what's crazy is that we set up the infrastructure for it about a year ago, and I got some pushback even from the clinicians that work with us. They're like, we don't want to do this. And I was like, it's the way of the future. We have to. So we at least had the website set up, and we had our HIPAA compliant video settings, but we had no idea that in March we would have to switch everybody over within a day's notice. Just like, okay, we either do this or we don't.
yeah. Yeah. So for those of you just joining us, I have Jenn Nakhai from Aon Counseling in Lynn, and we're talking a bit about trauma response. The counseling company, of course, is working with telehealth now. And if you have any questions about that or anything that we talk about today, if you're watching live, please feel free to write in the comments, and I'll be checking back there. I know Jenn has some friends that join us often or join you often in some other programs, so be excited to see some good questions out there if anyone has them. So yeah, as a counseling consulting company, other than having to translate to telehealth, like what have been the biggest changes? Like what are you seeing for?
The number one thing that we have seen so far is the treatment of either our COVID positive patients from home in full, complete isolation, even from their families. That has been an area of concern, and also the amount of frontline workers that we've been treating. We always have been. We have a big fan base of nurses and people who work in the medical field as our clients, as our patients, but I think we weren't mentally necessarily prepared to hear the stories of people having to go into work and seeing death constantly. That was a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think we're all experiencing the pressure. Either somebody who lost someone, either you lost somebody yourself. But at this point, it's reached the majority of us.
Yeah, I would say so. And so before we really dive into trauma response like we wanted to. I think it's important to acknowledge that as I've mentioned in a lot of these past episodes, that there is this collective trauma happening regardless of the level of interaction you have. Obviously the folks at the front lines that are seeing, you know, physical struggle, people that are passing from this at a higher rate than they've experienced in the past, even working in, you know, the hospitals, but that everybody is kind of navigating some major changes in their lifestyles, either temporarily or maybe permanently. So that's kind of what brought us to this conversation. What is trauma response, and how do we kind of divide these things into to understand them better, and then to use them to our best ability in navigating the future of the year and so forth. Who knows how long this would go for. So
right, I think that's part of the anxiety, is that we have no idea. I think at first I assumed this was just going to be 2 weeks at home, having sleeping, okay, taking it easy, but it ended up being not that at all. And pretty much an acupuncturist friend of mine was the one who best summarized it. Shout out to Christine, who basically said that we are all experiencing a type of response. We do not all have the same responses in general. Imagine someone who's being chased by a lion, is a very classic example. Some people will fight the lion. My choice, my favorite choice. Other people will run away from the lion, and other people will kind of just stand there and allow the lion to do whatever the lion needs to do. So these are very much chemical responses in our bodies. We do not have any control over them. And what we've been noticing, if you see a lot of like road rage and people at the grocery store who are extra touchy, is that we are all experiencing this trauma response already. And we are responding to it like unconsciously. We don't even realize that we have a baseline anxiety, a baseline fear, or a baseline kind of like defensive stance right away. That's what I've been seeing just in my surroundings and in myself, is that I'm definitely having a response. I just don't know exactly to what, right? I'm not sure if I'm more worried about the finances, or am I worried about my life, and staying alive. And so these are very weird times. And it just boils down to how your system tends to deal with things. Think about it. Are you someone who usually is conflict avoidant? Are you someone who usually pushes into conflict? Or are you someone who is completely neutral and indifferent to it, and you would rather not even get involved? And so these three primal examples, I think, is what is surrounding us right now. And it's very sad, because we're not being ourselves anymore.
Yeah. Interesting. So before, you were talking about telehealth a little bit, and I was actually hoping we could talk a little bit more about that, what that is, and how it's been working for your clients.
I think in the beginning, it was a little bit of a struggle for everyone to see and hear their therapist through their phone or through their computer. They were so confused. We really only had one therapist working fully within telehealth. She has young children, so she specifically had requested to work from home. And because we had the option, we were able to have that. Turns out she was ahead of the times. She was ahead of all of us, really. And so since the pandemic has hit, we have now hired 4 new staff. And so we continue to grow, because what I'm also seeing is that the demand is way greater than the supply. And we're trying to get as much supplies together as possible, because what we saw in other areas where we've had catastrophes is that it's that 3 to 6 month mark after something really starts to happen that physically and emotionally we begin to have greater traumatic responses, more reactive traumatic responses.
Yeah. which is why I'm glad that I have you on today, because I think a lot of us are getting to that point. I mean, I'm personally kind of shocked about the time that has passed already. I'm personally getting a little bit busy again with work. Things are reopening, and there's this whole new world to kind of navigate in that. I mean, even if you're working a fraction of the hours that you were working before, if you are returning to work now, or just anything, the things that are reopening, this new sense of I don't know, this new sense of need to be part of society again, maybe, is stressful. And I'm almost a little bit mourning the time that I had for myself, and maybe I didn't use it the way that I could have, because we were all just, you know what I mean? Like, how silly is that? But it's true. It's like, I'm like, crap, like all the time I wasted, but really what I was doing most of the time was trying to just absorb and survive, some of these initial traumatic, everyone, all the things that have already passed, things getting canceled.
Yeah, you were trying to soothe. I think the first couple of weeks we were either all in denial, flying around, being like, no virus is gonna get me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then things got very real.
Yeah. And then it's like, and then I felt like I adjusted, and then I felt like I was ready to adjust, and I found this new normal. It's going to constantly change. So maybe there's a few times where we're going to be faced with this fight or flight that you kind of started to mention. So I'd be curious to see what you think about what that is. Maybe we could just, start diving into this trauma response to better understand what those situations might look like.
Well, I promise everyone that you have had a type of traumatic response or reactivity, right? What we call reactivity at some point, because we often respond with facts, but we react with our emotions. Like when you're reacting to someone, you're just kind of firing back instead of responding, taking the time to see if it's correct or if this is really what you want to say. And once we start reacting, just acting out of complete raw emotion, that's when you've entered a traumatic response time. And it all boils down to your central nervous system. And I'm going to get into some nerdy talk, but I just want you guys to understand that we have these parts to our central nervous system, and our autonomic central nervous system handles a lot of the automatic things that you don't have to worry about in your body. One of them being how you react. And so our autonomic nervous system suddenly perceives a threat or senses that you've touched something hot, for instance, and you automatically push away. That is a type of response that your body's saying, okay, this is how we react to this. But going back to our lion example, in that very moment that you see the lion, you don't have time to think about, am I going to make it? You have a few seconds, right? And your body is the one who's going to make the decision for you. Your body holds a lot of the trauma in your life, and it kind of it's cumulative. Okay, there's with enough trauma, you're gonna see that your body breaks down with enough of these responses. They're very kind of harmful responses. Where we have a problem with this response is then when our parasympathetic system is unable to shut it down. It's after the lion has left and you made it, you survived, but you still fear that fear. Similar to people who've had break-ins at home. Do you feel safe in your house even though there's nobody else there, and there's nobody else there, but because already this happened, it's like you might have a hard time sleeping, for example. That's your parasympathetic system kicking in again, not allowing you to calm down. And so I think we are in this collective grief, right? We're grieving people, we've lost people, maybe coronavirus related or not. Even the folks who've died of natural causes, we can't grieve them the way that we would want to, pay our respects. So we're all carrying this collective grief, this collective trauma with us, this brand new trauma.
Yeah.
And imagine the people who were struggling with it before, which was the majority of our clients. People mostly come to therapy when they are ready or feel ready to start processing trauma. And so I think it's been very interesting to see our therapists handle community trauma, and then to see our therapists how they have handled their own like vicarious trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that you've been talking a lot about creativity and what an important channel of energy that we should all be tapping into, especially helpers, especially frontline folks, because an ongoing trauma response where our parasympathetic system is unable to shut it down
Mm-hmm.
is what leads to diseases, okay? From high blood pressure to all sorts of heart conditions to just mental illness and instability. It's going to make it harder for you to deal with your children if you're more reactive. It's going to make it harder to deal with your husband or wife. It's going to just be harder to live. And so I'm trying to get us ready before that 3 to 6 month mark in June through August, because I feel like that's where we're going to be feeling it the most, especially when we can't go have fun in the middle of the summer.
I want to go to the beach.
Well, I want to go to the beach too, because my superpower of tanning has left my body, but I am also trying to survive. And so how do I deal with that? And does that make me anxious? When am I going to go to the beach again? I don't know. I'm not sure.
You're talking about creativity as an outlet for managing this trauma response. I know through the Creative Collective and Creative North Shore community, there's a few wonderful like expressive arts therapy organizations locally. So if anybody is looking for something like that, a little bit more, arts therapy specific, but I'm sure that those things are kind of being suggested and worked through, from Aeon too.
Well, we would love to get more suggestions. I know that one of our therapists has been, I would say, the champion of self-care around this. I mean, she was really like the role model for the rest of us. She really, when she is not working, and shout out to Maria Ramos for doing all of her painting. Suddenly we have an artist and a therapist.
I love it.
She's handling very difficult cases. And I think she took it upon herself to specifically decompress and help her parasympathetic system calm down via spending time with families, via spending time with artwork, be it in the format of music or visual art, is so important. I mean, we encourage that with our trauma patients before we had this collective trauma. We were trying to encourage that and help people along. In fact, we have therapists in our practice that include some therapeutic arts into their psychotherapy, but they're not officially art psychotherapists. That's a special designation.
Yeah, it is a specialty, but I think it's important that they kind of work together, and I think both will bring up and help you navigate.
The biggest piece of advice that I could say to people is that when your body is keeping up with how much trauma, it's like it just keeps the score. And there's a book about that, The Body Keeps the Score. Fantastic book. I highly recommend it. When your body is trying to keep up with all the harm that we do to it every day, but also all the harm that is being caused to us every day, it has either a mechanism of breaking down or building up. And if we could just connect our bodies and our mind, that mind-body integration through artwork, especially in breathing, yoga, things of that nature, are things that very much help your parasympathetic system calm down. I'm talking about like activities that lower your blood pressure. They're so relaxing, okay? Like a really good massage. I'm not talking about watching TV. That's not mind-body integration at all.
Yeah, I mean, definitely movement for me. I know yoga is a huge one, but light exercise if you're able. For me, it's often just like a dance party in my living room, because I know for me, I mean, right now I'm starting to experience, maybe just because of the lack of being able to visit a chiropractor safely, and some of the things that I was doing and implementing in my schedule for upkeep, really. I am now feeling this heavily in my body, which is upsetting. And I know there's a lot of people out there that already are struggling with chronic pain. So trying to find some things just to start building blocks for, like you're saying, before it hits and its hardest. Maybe for different people it'll be at different times. But for me, dancing in my room to good music is both for my body and for my mind. So I think that's one that I like to always throw out there. Because
do you do it by yourself or when there's other people there?
By myself usually. Yeah. I mean, it depends. There's definitely times, like I live with my boyfriend, and if he's around, he'll laugh at me maybe or join, but usually it's the solo dance party.
Okay, all right. Well, we like that.
It's okay. And or
Solo dance parties. I'm talking about like just get your body moving. There's something about connecting movement and processing through your mind that is paramount in this moment. And those of you that don't necessarily have access to treatments like EMDR, that is very controversial. I would recommend starting with taking care of your body first. And in this book, The Body Keeps a Score, Dr. Vanderkolk talks about specifically how if you take care of your body first, the mental stuff falls into place later. If you're not having a good day, trust me, make a meal that is particularly nourishing or do something that is good for your body, and your mind will automatically fall in and feel better.
I think this is important too, as we're talking on Zoom. And obviously a lot of people are getting stuck up behind their screens, maybe more than they were before, even though, I mean, for me, my work has always been pretty computer heavy, but I think learning what those boundaries are, it's going to be, like you said, it's an ongoing thing as we adapt in our schedules and our habits change. But I think keeping that at the top of your awareness is really important, because I think that also, and maybe you know a little bit more, but like the use of screens actually affects your fight or flight like mechanisms, like, isn't it?
I heard back from our clinicians pretty quickly after we started full-blown telehealth. After the first week or so, well, one of the main things that they were reporting was fatigue. Not just fatigue because you're seeing a million people a day, or trying to anyway, because it's the same people we were seeing before, but why is it so much more tiring? And supposedly it's the blue light. So we've been encouraging blue light protectors for your computer, but also I encouraged the therapist to get some chic glasses.
Oh yeah.
That are blue light protectors.
And if you have prescription glasses like myself, I think there's a lot of companies that are offering those lenses. But I think
you can also put it on your computer. Either way, just try to do it. Because I know people who are regularly have computer heavy jobs have been telling me, like, if I have to look at a screen for another minute of the day, I'm going to go crazy. And I'm like, please don't, not right now. We can't go to the we can't go to the hospital at this time.
Yeah.
Don't go to the hospital with mental health conditions at this very moment, unless you are very sick and ready to hurt someone. That's the best advice I can give you right now. I wouldn't go to the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely, and that's definitely not going to help for a traumatic experience to see.
The other fun part is that a lot of people have been talking about, like, well, there's a lot of homeless people walking around and you could tell they're visibly mentally ill, and how come we're not helping them? That's because our emergency rooms are either full or closed to anyone that's not COVID positive. So we need to try to specifically help them and support each other at this time more than ever, because the people who had very little already have less, a lot less.
Yeah. So that was another topic we kind of touched on when I spoke with you a little while ago about food security, because for me, and I think for a lot of people, I mean, making a nourishing meal is one thing, but I think one of the crutches that a lot of us have who do have food security is food. I know that can also bring up a lot for people that have traumatic experience or negative relationships with food. So I'd be interested in hearing a little bit about your perspective on that food relationship for, I don't know, just because it's such a big picture situation. Like it's not that easy.
So complicated. especially to anyone who's had a difficult relationship with food before this. Now it's going to be extra difficult with a flavor of survival and maybe famine. We're not sure. Like, what makes you, what kind of primal fear can be worse than not having access to food? And a big shout out to the mutual aid communities and societies that have formed in both Salem and Lynn. Good job, you guys. That's very important work what you're doing, especially connecting people to resources. In a moment like this when nobody cares. I think people are also very much exploiting that for political campaigns. But at the end of the day, these are community members helping community members, and so I'm very proud of the work that they've done.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I hope that while, you know, a lot of us are, you know, a lot of new efforts have been begun to feed frontline workers, to also remember the people who are already at, you know, this threshold of food security before a pandemic hit. And obviously, a lot of us have been to the grocery stores and understand that navigating that is, one, stressful just as an activity in general. But then obviously seeing the shelves and not being able to get eggs on certain days, on, as I spoke about last week, you know, the meat changes and it's great, you know, for people who are a little bit more secure in general or have resources to think about these big picture systems that are being challenged right now. But I think if you're able to send any sort of $20, $50, $100 donation to the groups that you mentioned, I am a huge supporter of Citizens Inn and Haven from Hunger. But there's so many in the area, because what I'm seeing is they're not only, I mean, the people who work at those organizations or volunteer for those organizations are also being faced with some of those traumas.
Oh yeah.
But also organizationally, you know, they're also trying to get the food sources that we're all trying to, you know, shop for our families from, and dealing with that on their own scale. So I think that's just a note that I want to throw in there. If you're at the point now where you want to try to understand how to make a difference, that's a huge one right now.
I know a lot of the people that I know are trying to grow their own food. I'm not sure why we haven't been on this train before.
Yeah.
I know personally, I should have been doing this, and I know how to do it. Why haven't I done it?
Well, because we've always been go, 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 and we've never been home, or whatever the excuse is lifestyle wise. But I love that you mentioned that. I've been seeing a lot of people working on their gardens. We just built a couple small, you know, raised beds in our yard here. But there's also other great organizations that are trying to integrate that into their existing food, you know, program. Or I think Backyard Growers is one that comes to mind. Yes. Up in Gloucester and Rockport.
And impressive.
Educating people about how to build their own gardens, but also, yeah, implementing that. It's awesome.
But it's just like, you know, eating, sleeping, our social interactions, these are all things that can and will be affected by trauma. You're going to notice your reactions to food are going to be different. You're going to notice your tolerance even of food is going to be different. Your sleeping patterns, if anyone is sleeping too much, if anyone is sleeping too little, or having interrupted sleep, like you're waking up too early or not going to bed early enough. These are again, it's all connected, it's all related. And so we need to make sure that our bodies are able at this point, because we don't know what's coming. And I think the wave of grief has started. I know for our company personally, like we lost a staff member to this, and that is, you just don't expect it to hit you so close. I don't know. That's not cool.
Well, it's hard because I think it's something that in the States, especially, I guess, and this is a broad statement, but we see a lot of this stuff, like traumatic things and war happening on TV. And so for a lot of this, I think people felt like that was just how this is going to play out. We're all going to hide in our homes and nobody we know is going to be affected by any of it. But in reality, even if you don't become ill yourself, not only are you going to be, we're facing this from so many angles, not from just loss and grief, but
yeah. Yeah, we're still actively trying to fight this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
For all the people already celebrating parades and going to all sorts of events to celebrate frontline workers are still frontline working. So let's, before you go to a protest about reopening, it's like we're still trying to deal with the problem. It didn't leave. We just ran out of money. That's all.
Yep. That's true. It's funny. I've been working on events, and we're trying to navigate this in an interesting way online, which at first I didn't love. But I think there's a need for it, but in certain sectors and in certain very carefully generated scenarios. So we'll see this new world as it unfolds before us. But I think there's also an empowering note there, though, that we do have the ability to kind of navigate this. I was writing last night a little bit about millennials, folks kind of in my generation and yours, that we've grown and adapted to technology as it's grown and changed. And it's just like second nature to us. So I think we're at the point now, not only because of the age that we've all become at this point in time, but we're able to really lay the basis of what we want to do with that, and keeping the human connection as the forefront of that is what's going to really make a difference in what we see next. So I'm excited.
Good job to you specifically for pivoting. Like, you did it seamlessly. It was just like, oh, of course I will have an online show now, and I will continue.
Well, let's be honest. John Andrews, the owner of Creative Collective, has been trying to get my face on video regularly for 5 years. Love you.
And look at that. And look at him go right now. He was right all along. He was right along. Yeah, no, I think for anyone who owns a business right now, either you pivot or you sit back. Same thing with fight or flight. Either you fight for this business to continue, or you fight for people to stay alive, or you sit back and watch or watch the train wreck.
So it's fight, freeze, or run, right? Are those the three kind of
fight or freeze? Yeah, you can
fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah, okay.
3 Fs. You can call it whatever. Everyone who's listening, if you think of a time that you've been scared, you know that you are either a fighter, a great runner, which is not me, or you are someone who can be at times paralyzed by fear. This actually happens. Like, your body can shut down on you, and it is not something that you can choose. You're simply born that way, and that is how your autonomic nervous system has chosen to handle your body.
And I think that's helpful to note, because I think in a lot of times we feel like we're not reacting the way that we're supposed to be, based on, someone we know, even people we're close to, and feel like generally we have a lot in common with these people or this person, but we're going to react totally different than them. So I just want everyone to hear that. And so we're just about 10 minutes out from the end of our show for the day. And I know you wanted to talk a little bit about family. Usually I've been asking all of my guests to come on with like a tip or trick to share at the end. And we've seen a little bit of everything. So this is opportunity for Jenn to talk a little bit more about family here. So let me know.
Yeah. Our tip of the day is don't lose it on your family just yet. The biggest thing that I've been hearing all week right now is that everyone is going crazy with their family. The biggest topic right now is family. And what a great opportunity to engage in something creative with them after you've taken time for yourself. Always, always, always prioritize yourself. Similar to when you're on a plane and they ask you to please put the mask on yourself first before you can help anybody else. If you're not stable, how can you help your family members? And for those of us who are parents, that is extra, extra, extra important. Remember that children process trauma and process events very differently than us. Children that suffer from anxiety and depression will manifest it very differently. To them, it can be very somatic, like my stomach hurts, my belly hurts, I have a headache, so children don't know how to express these emotions. Most adults don't know how to express these emotions. So when children do it, it can come out in whining, in a lot of either I don't want to get up, especially if you have teenagers. You're going to see these ogres that you live with, right? I call teenagers ogres because they just eat and sleep and they just stay in their rooms and play video or whatever they do, right? But mostly they're like an ogre that lives in your house. And then when they get better from their adolescent condition, you can get to enjoy your family members a whole lot more. But bringing it back to creativity, I want people to find creative things and creative ways to spend time with your family. High quality spending time, high quality time. From art projects specifically, I think that's my favorite, but not everyone is an artist, to cooking together, reading a particular book together, discussion. Find a way of spending time with your family and getting to know them. For the folks who do not have people with them, connect with as many people as you can. I want you using FaceTime and your Zoom account. I want everybody trying to connect, take care of your neighbor. Make sure that everyone has the things that they need, because a lot of people are either scared, they don't want to go out to get things. And if they're elderly, especially. So I know right now in Salem, the whole group of witches are taking care of each other. And it's very beautiful to watch how like, I don't have toilet paper, send me one. And like, I don't have zucchini, can you hit me with a zucchini, thanks. It's like, can you please give me some carrots, I need carrots right now, but I happen to have the paper towel that you needed. So I see people working in ways and working together in ways, even though they're more far away than ever.
So building family if you don't have them immediately with you as well. I think there is an opportunity there to create new communities. I mean, I know for me, as I mentioned, I'm working on a virtual event, and this is one of my favorite things, is to get people to come together. And I'm pulling from, like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to this person in years. Like, you're perfect for this. Like, what do you think? Like, worst case scenario, we're just going to have a really good chat and you're not going to work on this project with me. But like, how fulfilling was that opportunity to see how you're doing, and do you need anything? How can I help you?
I think that's my favorite question right now.
Exhausting for people. Like, I'm not saying do this every day. There's days where I'm like, don't talk to me, give me a few hours. Like, that's okay too. I think you should push yourself a little bit to try. I was playing a lot of The Sims again when this started. I always played The Sims. I don't know if you know that game.
I am a little too familiar with that game.
Okay, cool. Me too. But there's all these needs that they have, and how important are those? Like, you should fill those first. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to take your sim downtown to go have some libations or whatever.
Now you can take your sims out of the house?
Yeah. They can go out, but you can't.
I guess I haven't been playing The Sims in a couple years. The last I played The Sims, you could lock people inside of their own homes.
That's a good way to get some of your anger out, people. Honestly, I do like video games. I think that there's a good opportunity there to kind of unplug from the real world, but
and so some people have a need for others, right? Some people need other people, some people don't. This is kind of an introvert's dream.
Yeah, and I think I'm a good balance of both. I think a lot of people have a couple scoops of each, and just riding that wave out. But I think I would say that the biggest lessons that we've gained today were, making connections with people, and keeping that family aspect, and finding patience, but also understanding again that everybody's going to be reacting to this just in totally different ways than the next. So maybe there's an opportunity to find people who are kind of in the same experience as you. If you need that, find telehealth if you feel like that's going to be helpful for you. And
very, very easy to reach
some
reach out for telehealth. You don't even have to talk to anyone. Look at that.
What do you mean? You don't have to talk to anyone to get an appointment?
Yep.
You just sign up online.
Can be fully done via text or email.
Oh, so, you're saying for your session, you can. Okay. No, that's helpful information. I think some people aren't comfortable. I mean, even though we're having this show, there's days where I'm on Zoom and I'm like, if I could just shut my screen off, I think I could have a more intimate conversation because you're not watching yourself. I mean, we're all on here. Like, what do I look like?
Not everyone who engages in telehealth chooses the video option. In fact, to be honest with you, as a therapist, I don't like the video option.
Right, for the same reason. I mean, I
can see your facial expressions and it's better for communication, but quite frankly, I don't, it's like you're really on display, and because you're the therapist, you're this important object to them, and it's just like, oh no, like you can see my house. No. No.
Yeah.
So listen, some people are doing it just by checking in written form. Some people are doing it by calling. I know we've had a couple of folks that's like, I got a flip phone, I can't call you in FaceTime. Don't worry about it. We got you. We will accommodate to you. This is an emergency. And insurance agencies have covered it 100% at this time. So if you have a deductible or a co-payment, all of that is being waived.
Which is great. Yeah. So I don't know if we had any questions. I want to leave us on for just a couple more minutes to see.
Let me check because I have a million notifications right now.
Okay. I'm just seeing a couple of comments on our Creative Collective. That's why it's on Creative Collective. I thought we were in Creative North Shore, you guys.
I mean, I think Creative North Shore. Oh no, Creative Collective. You're right. That's exactly where we are. It's actually on both. I'm seeing it here on both.
Oh, good. See, they're smart with this technology. I need to talk to somebody before trying to do anything on my own for this. There's like a custom live stream and you can just like stream to everything. I don't know. I think the coolest thing about all of this, just a side note, is like there are companies like that are going to be live, like ready to broadcast, like as if this was like a studio, you know what I mean? Performances, any sort of happenings, which is really just going to be like a good opportunity to adapt in the future, because who knows, more strange things are going to happen in our lifetime, I'm sure. But we're going to survive.
Don't say that. 2020 almost killed me. Oh God, between earthquakes in Puerto Rico and this, it's like, anything else that we need to do this year? We haven't had a tornado yet.
Yeah, we have. There was a ton of them happening at the very beginning of this in like Oklahoma, and I'm just like, anyways, let's end on a positive note.
Yes. I'm gonna do some artwork.
Yeah, and stay in touch. I mean, I'm happy to. I think I just have one more episode next week. And we'll see where we go from there. But if anyone wants to stay in touch with me, with Jen or any of my guests, always reach out. Let me know how we can help. And if you want to be friends, let's do it, because we all can make friends on the internet now. Thank you for joining me, Jen.
Thank you, Katie, for sure. Thank you for having me.
Collective and Creative North Shore. See you next week, everyone, and be well.
Bye.